Hello and welcome to my story, Aurora and the Dawn of a New Age. I hope you like this story. This is the final version of my story. I will put more effort into it and I hope you will have fun hearing my story. It would help me if you could recommend my stories to your friends.
In the world of Arcanas, there are 7 great imperial realms, 7 superpowers that rule across the planet. Arcanas is so vast that most of its inhabitants can hardly fathom its true scale. When you consider how many countries exist and how the empires stretch thousands of kilometers across continents, you have to admit that the planet's size defies simple description. It is precisely this immensity that awakens Aurora Borealis von Akkadian's curiosity and joy for discovering magic. There are so many ancient tomes, legends, myths, and magic disciplines in this world, and she longs to see them all. The mere thought of holding that knowledge makes her mouth water as she watches the stars from her balcony. The night is breathtaking, and she realizes she's actually starting to drool at the prospect of uncovering countless books or magical secrets. But for that to happen, she would have to leave the imperial palace of Akkadian. And based on what Aurora has observed of her father, Aaron von Akkadian, over the past 100 to 150 cycles, it's almost certain he would banish her, and activate Luminaria's teleportation barriers. In other words, he'd lower the barrier against spatial fluctuation, i.e., any form of teleportation within Luminaria, the Silver City at the heart of the Akkadian Empire. Because these barriers block all teleportation within the capital, they would have to be lifted, if only for a single second. That 1 second would be enough to put into motion all the plans she's been plotting for years. It really is a shame that I won't see my little brother Raoul again after this week. By the end of it, all have been banished. Their faces will be priceless when they realize I actually do have magic. I wonder if my family will regret neglecting me once they see they ignored me simply because they believed I had no power. Maybe it was too much to expect love from them, even if I never used my magic. But I wouldn't have had any other choice. If they discovered what I can do, who I really am, they would almost certainly have me executed out of fear. And I'm not eager to be burned at the stake, hunted by the whole world, or, at best, simply put to death. Yes, that would have been a miserable life, hiding forever. I couldn't risk revealing that I possess more than 2 elements by using just fire and earth. It's too bad my family was such jerks that they refused to love me just because I didn't show any magic, or pretended I didn't. Aurora Borealis von Akkadian thinks.
As Aurora pondered what might happen next, a voice suddenly spoke in her ear, a voice she had been waiting for, and to her delight, it finally answered. I've finished copying the information from the underground library of Akkadian. No one noticed me. Shall I return now, Creator? The voice sounded like the rustling of thousands of turning pages, or the scratching of a quill on parchment. Aurora couldn't describe it any better. This voice wasn't just a sound, it felt like the birth of a book, or the whisper of one unfolding. She felt no sense of urgency as she gazed out over the white silver city shimmering under the light of the 2 moons above. The marble streets and buildings below looked as if they had been carved from moonlight itself. As her gaze drifted from the lavishly decorated houses to the rooftops of pure gold, a small smile played on her lips. She took her time responding, letting her eyes wander across the surroundings, the winding roads and walkways weaving through the heart of the Elven Empire. Luminaria, the capital of Akkadian, was bathed in a soft glow from various types of lanterns. Some were slime lanterns, which were occasionally fed bits of organic waste and glowed gently at night in hues of blue and green. But these weren't the only sources of light in Luminaria, the Silver Moon City. There were also countless torch brackets and fire basins where rainbow-colored flames burned with eternal light. Even from a distance, Aurora could clearly see a group of elves grilling meat over the rainbow flames. Her eyes zoomed in to study a group of 3 elves and a man, some of them half-clothed, standing around the fire. One of the elves casually held a stake in the flames with her bare hand. Aurora wasn't surprised in the slightest that the elf's hand wasn't burned, but the sausage, on the other hand, sizzled and blackened. This was a known property of the rainbow flame. Its heat affected only dead material, it could not harm living beings. Even if someone threw an ant into the fire, the insect would emerge unharmed. Only lifeless matter was altered by the rainbow flame. Also known as Elm's fire, the rainbow flame was far more than a magical fire. There were no words needed between Aurora and the magical artifact she had spent her life trying to create. It was nothing short of a miracle that, through the absorption of so much knowledge, it had developed a consciousness, an ego. Aurora had no need to hide her feelings for her creation. It may have started as a theoretical experiment, but the attempt had succeeded completely. Her personal grimoire had gained a will of its own. The risk that it might be stolen, or that someone else might try to read it, was one Aurora had accepted from the start, because of the exotic materials used in its construction and the formidable enchantments woven into it. If anyone had been capable of opening the book, they would need to possess either the magical force of a dragon, strong enough to ignore and break through all the magical defenses, in which case the book would have exploded under the pressure. Or they would have to be far more intelligent and powerful than Aurora herself, which would mean there was no point in trying to keep secrets from them, or fighting them. But that was highly unlikely. Aurora knew every person in this palace and had an even deeper understanding of the magical capabilities of the Elven Empire. I'm glad my plan worked, Aurora thought, projecting her thoughts toward the grimoire. Now I just don't know what to call you, Seeker, Akasha, no idea. I've never been in a situation where an object could talk to me. The grimoire, showing no emotion other than a hunger for knowledge, responded without the slightest trace of irritation. It wasn't surprising, when Aurora thought about it. The book's thirst for knowledge mirrored her own. It was the crystallization of her own insatiable curiosity, more than just a powerful and precious artifact, it was an extension of herself. That was one of many reasons why she was willing to risk the book being discovered or opened. It was bound to her soul, and in her mind, nothing should be able to override that bond. Of course, in the world of magic, never was a dangerous word. But the probability that anyone could actually break that link was astronomically low. The potential knowledge she could gain from her father's private library far outweighed the risks. Creator, you may call me whatever you wish. My purpose is to gather knowledge, preserve yours, and help you achieve your goals. You should know as well as I do that we are connected on a fundamental level. I know you, and you know me. We are bound in ways beyond flesh, and you are surely aware that I am no more alive than a spirit or a lesser god. Just because I can speak more fluently and possess an artificial soul does not make me alive. I only appear to be living, but I am not. Just as an echo remains an echo and not the original, just as a projection spell or a hologram is not the real thing. A picture is not its subject. You may think of a pseudo-soul as a high-quality imitation of a soul. Similar, yes, but not the same. In some ways, my existence mirrors that of lesser gods, golems, and other artificial beings, so there is no need to worry about my existence. The grimoire's voice echoed gently in her mind. The grimoire's dispassionate, analytical voice spoke in her mind. I should break out. I ought to manage it without sustaining too much damage. Aurora smiled to herself. Seeker Akasha felt like the perfect name for her grimoire, and swiftly projected her plan, which the book immediately understood. This plan could work. I will use the time to modify myself. Your theories on creating a pseudo-soul and on my own creation may require a few adjustments, but essentially your suspicion is correct. It is possible for me to self-modify. One might even call me an artificial intelligence, which indeed I am, an unnatural entity possessing the same level of intellect as an elf. However, we can postpone your philosophical dilemmas until after your escape from the Imperial Palace. Aurora's lips curved into an amused smile. Everything was proceeding more smoothly, and more practically, than she had dared hope. Her plan was unfolding perfectly. It was a pleasant surprise that the newly awakened personality of the grimoire already had suggestions for improving her theories and spells. At the same time, a part of her felt nervous. The idea of letting something evolve beyond her control made her uneasy. For a few seconds she hesitated, wondering whether she should permit the grimoire's self-modification or risk creating something she could no longer stop. In the end, her curiosity and thirst for knowledge triumphed. It might be reckless, foolish, even, and she might unleash something she'd never control again. But Aurora felt it would be worth it if it became as powerful as she dared imagine in her darkest dreams. The grimoire's voice returned, cool and measured. Your fears, that I might ascend to a godlike state, were extremely unlikely. I am a living artifact, and I have already explained that I am not alive in the same sense you are. Even if I somehow shattered the boundaries of magic, there are almost certainly entities far more powerful than anything describable or imaginable in this world. Zerpera Bahamut, the mightiest living being in this realm, the Dragon Empress, other dragons, or even the emperors of rival realms. the likelihood that I, or we, could reach a level to defeat them is minuscule and still far off. Therefore, I will not become a malevolent being that destroys its creator. Again, the grimoire spoke. You should know that it would make no sense for the mother of worlds, creator of all things, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, to allow magic to produce something that endangers existence itself. It would be a paradox, something I would contradict myself, if any creation could surpass its creator, but these are all theories and hypotheses. Aurora was positively surprised when the grimoire's voice adopted a distinctly feminine tone, but the uneasy feeling about the situation did not lessen. All right, she projected back, let's set aside the philosophical stuff for now. My dear grimoire, I want to know, did you find any information in my father's secret, sealed library about the nature of my golden eyes? Why are my magic eyes more powerful than those of others? And did you discover anything about the alliance? Her heart pounded at the thought. The possibility of a global alliance hunting people like her sent icy chills down her spine and twisted her stomach. Even though she possessed unfairly potent magic, powers that would seem strange even to the most skilled mages, she would be helpless if another mage used a spell she hadn't personally modified. The grimoire responded wryly, I am so royally screwed if someone more powerful than I am uses magic I haven't previously manipulated. Fortunately, many mages use my enhanced spells, published under my second identity. It would be utter disaster if my family cast an exile spell not drawn from the newer spells I developed. If they use a spell I haven't modified and released, I can't override it, and it would take too long. By then, I'd already be banished. On the other hand, it's theoretically possible I'd survive using space manipulation and teleportation. But I could also end up stranded in the middle of a desert and starve, no matter how often I teleport. I cannot allow the banishment circle to teleport me away unless it's one of the spell series one revolutionized and published. Aurora waited, trembling, for her book's reply. No precise data exists on the Alliance, the grimoire finally answered, but the legends about your golden magic eyes call them heavenly eyes. They supposedly arose when angels sired children with mortals. Their offspring were said to inherit divine eyes capable of peering through the world and perceiving the true nature of all things. If magic eyes are already powerful, heavenly eyes stand above them as the heavens stand above the earth. There is simply no comparison between what heavenly eyes can do versus ordinary magic eyes. As Aurora reflected on it, she realized that the ability to peer through the world and understand all things in creation wasn't very helpful if one couldn't process the flood of information, her eyes' primary issue. She wondered if it might be possible to weaken or alter her heavenly eyes, as they felt more like a curse than a blessing. Hey, Akasha, is there a way to weaken my heavenly eyes? I feel like I could go mad if I accidentally overuse them. The torrent of information when I open my eyes is just too much. And I already wear a blindfold, yet I can still see through multiple walls and detect the magical signature of everyone in my field of view, even when they suppress their magic. Aurora projected, addressing her grimoire. There is no known method to reduce the perception of magic eyes, let alone heavenly eyes, the voice of Seeker Akasha replied. No one has ever faced your problem, perceiving too much. It is currently impossible to diminish your sight, Creator. At that, a small part of Aurora's hope sank, and a flicker of despair bloomed in her heart. The idea of going insane because of her own eyes was terrifying. Such madness would hinder her life's purpose. Exploring magic could not continue under such conditions. Lost in thought, Aurora barely noticed time passing. The sun rose, and life in Luminaria's silver city carried on untroubled. Elves who had slept through the night awoke, while others who had stayed up retired for an hour's rest. A gardener tended the flowers in the imperial palace gardens. Here and there, elven mages wandered about unclothed, men and women alike, engaged in meditation or other rituals. Aurora felt no erotic interest in either sex. Their bodies, she decided, held no fascination for her. She couldn't imagine regarding such behavior as extraordinary or giving it more than a passing glance. Inevitably, her thoughts turned to humans and their oddities. A tangle of conflicting emotions rose within her, repulsion and fascination in equal measure. All their attempts to conquer Luminaria or the Elven Empire had failed, yet humans persisted in their pursuit of wealth, fame, and honor, challenging titans they could never defeat. For a moment, Aurora thought humans were like ants, mindlessly running into the fire, over and over, expecting a different outcome. She wasn't sure whether it was their stupidity or greed that drove them to devise suicidal schemes to seize empires stronger than themselves. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke in her mind. What are you thinking about, my dear sister? It was Raoul von Akkadian, now Crown Prince of the Elven Empire and her beloved little brother. Oh, nothing special, Aurora replied out loud, turning from her balcony to face him. I was just thinking about how ridiculous humans behave in their attempts to conquer our empire. Even when they develop new weapons, their magical aptitude is poor. They're weak, short-lived, and absurd. They multiply like rats, yet their tenacity, reaching for the heavens, is impressive. I don't know whether to admire or pity them, since despite their persistence, they never truly advance. Raoul nodded. You're right. Humans are strange creatures. I sometimes can't make sense of them either. They recently attacked one of our coastal villages again, when the elves were elsewhere. No one was there, yet they looted the roofs and streets for some reason. I really don't understand them. That behavior is typical of humans, Aurora said wryly. They probably stole the gold from our streets. I still don't know what they want with gold, but apparently, it's one of their core motivations for raiding us. Raoul's brow furrowed in confusion. He genuinely hadn't grasped that humans attacked them for gold. Isn't it completely senseless, reckless and idiotic, to risk your life for a material that has no magical properties? Do they value their fleeting lives so little? Why steal gold that lies by the roadside? Couldn't they just pick it up themselves? Then again, maybe it only lies around where we live. He looked at Aurora with admiration, noticing how she seemed to see despite her blindfold. Though he longed to ask why his sister had worn a blindfold for so many years, he hesitated. The answer might be something he wasn't prepared to hear, and he wasn't sure how to begin asking. This stuff we use as paving because it gleams so beautifully and is incredibly stable and barely reacts with anything. Gold is extremely precious to humans in their lands because it's so very rare there. They value it, we merely admire it, and that's why they raid our villages and cities. You should know that if you paid attention in class. Aurora said reproachfully, even though it was harder since she wore a blindfold. Yet it felt as if she stared him down, and Raoul wasn't sure how he sensed it through her bandages. He wouldn't have been surprised if his sister harbored secrets she'd never shared. She had always been mysterious. Hey, I did pay attention in class, Raoul replied. When Aurora fixed her gaze on him, he felt as though an eagle or a predator perched above him, and her look seemed to say she wouldn't believe a word he said, though he didn't know how she could feel that without seeing. Anyway, could you please create a barrier around us? I want no one else to hear what I'm about to discuss, Aurora asked, and Raoul complied, conjuring a barrier that even his guard could not penetrate with their ears, though they remained motionless behind him. All right, the barrier's up. What did you want to tell me, dear sister? He asked. It's hard to describe, better to show. I wish you could also make it so no one sees inside. Could you make the barrier opaque, just for a very short time, maybe 5 seconds? Aurora requested, and without hesitation Raoul obliged. The barrier turned jet black, revealing nothing of what lay within. Aurora knew it might seem paranoid. After all, this isn't magic, so it leaves no echo and has no physical effects beyond the light, which she could also control, but her heart still raced as she unleashed what she had tightly held since she first understood its nature. Without warning, a silver flame enveloped Aurora's entire body in roaring light, visible only to someone who bore more fate fragments or a stronger destiny than she, which should have been impossible, since Aurora Borealis von Akkadian was certain no one held a greater fate. Yet, she knew better than to say never, and preferred paranoia to death, hence the safety of the opaque barrier. When she saw Raoul's understanding at the sight of her silver fragments, she let herself smile. With a single thought, she ended the cosmic display, leaving no trace except the weight of the moment hanging like a heavy veil. Bloody hell, how on earth is that possible? Those were more fate fragments than all 7 legendary heroes combined. That was true fate fire. That's definitely not something you should have shown anyone but me. My God, I still can't believe what I saw, Raoul breathed. Aurora regarded him through her closed eyes and blindfold, and though Raoul could neither see nor feel her gaze, it pressed down on him like a predatory stare. Yes, I know I shouldn't show anyone how much destiny I carry. That could end badly, but it's nearly impossible to kill me if I try not to die. You've seen my fate's strength, Aurora explained. In that moment, the world seemed to freeze. Nothing moved. Raoul thought to lift the opacity barrier to avoid worrying anyone, but he stayed still, stunned. This revelation would change everything, and it made sense why Aurora was so arrogant and self-involved. With that many fate fragments, killing her while she fought to survive would be almost impossible. She'd have to be careless to make a fatal mistake. Fate wasn't immutable, He knew it, she knew it, but still, her overwhelming destiny was a tremendous relief. I showed you this so you'd know my plans will succeed. I've anticipated Father's and the nobles' actions, you need not worry. Everything is unfolding according to my design. I know you fear Father might seek a scapegoat. I want him to do just that. It's part of my plan, and I won't need your help for it. Thank you for supporting me over the years, but soon we'll have to part ways, not forever, but for the near future. We won't see each other for a few cycles, but you'll be fine. You've learned enough from me about strategy and governance that you won't embarrass yourself without me, Aurora said, a gentle smile on her lips. It's wonderful that my big sister carries so much fate, such great destiny, but I still don't want you to go. I feel you want to leave. Be careful, even if your destiny is the strongest I've ever known. You can still die if misfortune strikes. Your fate is powerful, making an accidental death almost impossible, but the chance remains. Absolute destiny doesn't exist, it's malleable in that a mistake could kill you, and I don't want that. I want you to stay here in the safety of the palace, but I know you've made up your mind, Rahul thought, watching her. Their conversation continued as Rahul lowered the barrier after a few minutes, allowing sound through again. They spoke of minor things. One day passed into two into four, and the first preparations for a trial were underway, though none of it surprised Aurora. She felt the pieces of her plan clicking into place, everything unfolding as she intended. The final preparations on her side were made, and her escape from this cursed palace, where she was nothing but a princess without magic, was imminent. The most difficult factor was calculating the many variables and predicting elven behavior. Aurora wished for her family's love, but she knew that was wishful thinking, though she was confident her father respected her enough not to execute her for her revolutionary ideas and challenge to noble authority. The most likely outcome in the throne room would be banishment to a random realm, a teleport to some point across the world, precisely what her plan required. At last the trial began. No true justice awaited her, for the verdict hung in the air before Aurora even entered the hall. As she saw through the closed doors the great teleportation circle on the floor before the throne, exactly where she would be tried, surrounded by the other mages in a semicircle around it, their runes hidden beneath the carpet. Those elves have danced to my tune. They're using Merlin's banishment circle, from my second persona, the false identity I built over the years. They've already decided to banish me, Aurora thought as she strode through the towering white marble and gold gates like a queen returning to her throne room. Even as she approached her father, Aaron von Akkadian, in calm steps, something stirred in the Emperor's secret library that none of them could foresee. Had the library been designed to prevent escape, her entire plan would have collapsed, but since it was built to stop intrusion, breaking out was much easier, and everything proceeded, as Aurora could sense, according to her plan. Well then, old man, what'll your verdict be? From where I stand, it won't be execution. You don't have the nerve to kill your own daughter. I believe there's something human left in you, not just ice in your veins. Anyway, I'm glad I won't have to stay here a moment longer. Playing the innocent little girl and being friendly to everyone has grown old, Aurora declared confidently, puzzling everyone in the room, including the Imperial Court mages, because someone without magical power or elemental affinity should never have spoken so boldly in front of those who could end her life with a single spell. The timid, reserved golden princess, the princess of the people, the voice of the commoners, would never have acted like this or spoken so recklessly. She seemed like a different person. If not for the identical magical signature, her imprint, doubt would arise that this was Aurora at all. Do you even know what you're doing? You're challenging the Emperor's authority, one of the court mages spat. I know exactly what I'm doing, you side character. You play no part here. I know you decided my fate before I arrived. So do us all a favor and get it over with. Put me in prison, throw me out of the palace or the country. Do whatever you like. I'm done playing a part. Do it, but stop wasting breath on pointless discussion and justifying your laziness in improving this empire. Equality for commoners and nobles alike would be best. I don't know if you're all fools or truly believe magic belongs only to nobility. If this empire falls due to pride and outdated tradition, because only a handful of elves had the right to learn magic, it won't be my problem. Magic doesn't choose. It's an energy, not a possession. It can't belong to one person or a privileged few, Aurora Borealis von Akkadian proclaimed, unconcerned at any retaliation, for such attacks were forbidden in the throne room and even more so during a trial. Though the judgment was preordained, none of the old fools would risk breaking tradition or law. The court mages' voices rose in outrage, but Aurora paid them no heed. her focus remained on Aaron von Akkadian in his colossal throne. For your revolutionary thoughts and disrespect toward the crown, you are banished, daughter. Are you aware of your crimes? Do you know what you've done wrong, Aurora? Aaron's voice boomed like thunder through the hall. Aurora merely smiled at her father, assessing the mages muttering under their breath as they activated the banishment circle. As Aurora surveyed the preparations, she could not help but laugh. She truly could not fathom how she had ever been so conceited as to believe this family might love her. Her laughter was twisted and unnatural, no fit for a princess, and bordered on madness. For a moment, the 13 court mages activating the banishment circle hesitated. The spatial binding magic snapped into place, pinning Aurora's arms and legs so she could no longer move, but she continued to laugh in the face of danger. I see you've lowered the dimensional distortion barrier against teleportation. Well then, I suppose this will be the final act of my little play. And I'm sorry I had to deceive you, Raoul, but now the curtain will fall. Aurora declared in an overdramatic tone, turning her face, through closed eyes, to Raoul. Suddenly, the unexpected happened. Her blindfold began to loosen on its own. The ground trembled as an explosion ripped away part of the wall beside the throne, and something incredibly swift and silver hurtled toward Aurora. The projectile was fast enough to shred an elf to pieces within a fraction of a second, but struck no one, as it flew precisely between the court mages and abruptly halted before Aurora at the very moment her blindfold slipped from her face. As Aurora opened her eyes, it was as if the world held its breath. 2 new suns seemed to rise in the hall, 2 eyes burning with an unnatural radiance, as beautiful as the dawn itself. Before the Emperor and the mages could recover from the confusion, the next miracle shattered all magical law. Aurora Borealis von Akkadian's lips moved, but no sound emerged, as the symbol circle beneath her feet, previously glowing bluish, slowly shifted to burn with golden light. A few runes trembled before rearranging themselves, as though the teleportation circle were reconfiguring. Thank you, you idiots, for playing along with my little drama. Now the curtains will close, and I hope you enjoy the next performance. Aurora announced, her voice echoing silently in everyone's minds. Her personal grimoire suddenly flipped open, pages flying as if stirred by a furious wind. First Aaron recognized the tone, and then the mages at his side. Their astonishment knew no bounds when they realized it was Merlin's grimoire, a bound, enchanted artifact that should never be held by anyone but its true creator. The fact that Aurora could open Merlin's grimoire left only one conclusion: the mage they had hunted through countless cycles had been among their ranks all along. Aurora Borealis von Akkadian was the wandering, wise Merlin, the architect of so many innovations and new spells that modern magic relied upon them. Wait, Aurora came not from Raoul, as she had half expected, but from Aaron von Akkadian himself, flanked by her 2 mothers at the throne. With a final glance toward Raoul, who returned her smile in silent pride, Aurora shook her head, then dissolved into motes of light. The hall shimmered like heat waves over a blazing fire as the banishment circle beneath her shattered. The runes cracked apart, fragmenting into golden sparks. The spell had fulfilled its purpose, and another unforeseen design. In that moment, Aaron realized how disastrously he had failed as a father, neglecting the one who meant the most because he saw no value in her or her gifts. It was a grave mistake. Here stood Merlin, now the brightest star of the Elven Empire since its founding, escaped by his own hand. He could have had so much more, had he only opened his heart and given love to the one who truly needed it. Even though House Akkadian knew how wrong they had been, it did nothing to change what had occurred. The only person not saddened was Raoul von Akkadian. All eyes turned to him, and he simply laughed as they stared. You'll never find her. Even I don't know where she is. She must have known you'd pursue her and didn't tell me. Not that I'd tell you even if I knew, but I simply don't. I can swear it on my honor. Honestly, I never guessed what she'd been hiding. She's Merlin, the wandering mage. Raoul said, knowing they'd try to track her down, but that it would be impossible. Still, Raoul wondered how she had pulled it off, and how her eyes could have shone like that. Such a phenomenon would belong to magic eyes, but theirs would be violet, unless her eyes weren't magic eyes at all, but something far more powerful. Yet Raoul didn't worry. He knew she must be better off wherever she was than she ever was here. So what should I do now? I'll let it leak that she's been banished, to rally the people. I'll carry on her plans for equality between nobility and commoners. I hope I'll see her again someday. Raoul thought, turning away without granting his father even one more glance. Meanwhile, Far above Luminaria, the Silver Moon City, stars fell from the sky and raced toward the city. Almost at the same moment, explosions ripped through streets and buildings, as Aurora's, or rather Merlin's, Plan B went into effect despite her absence. The destruction was dramatic, but insufficient to truly harm the elves or deal lasting damage. It served as a cheap distraction, one that would have worked had Aurora actually wanted to flee, which, in this moment, was beside the point. Elsewhere in the world, Aurora emerged from a swirl of rainbow-hued elm's fire that vanished instantly. She looked around, waiting. Then it happened. A streak of white light shot from the heavens and struck the ground before her. A wave of chaotic magic rippled through the surrounding area like a gust of wind. It was as if a fragment of the moon had fallen to Earth, and Aurora peered into the newly formed crater. You know, this amount of lumetit could collapse the entire empire. It's truly priceless. Akasha observed. Yes, you're right, but I'm not making anything extraordinary, just armor, and a staff. Aurora replied, stepping toward the massive chunk of the world's rarest magical material. It was nearly as heavy as she was and had taken her 4 cycles to assemble, because she couldn't move freely within the palace. Aurora examined the crystal, or was it metal, for her trained eyes struggled to discern its nature. Even activating her magic eyes revealed nothing. It simply didn't work on this material, which was extraordinary. Her vision could penetrate everything except pure lumetit. Ah, well, it's time to forge armor worth a kingdom. Aurora thought, summoning a scroll from a black portal. Part of her considered relocating to a secure site. But venturing into a populated region with such a treasure in hand would be riskier. Most villagers in this human kingdom had never seen lumetit, but word could spread quickly, drawing the attention of several realms and inviting a worldwide manhunt. That, too, would be disastrous. She concluded it was more strategic to perform the ritual in the wilderness. It was risky, but the only thing she truly needed to protect was her masterpiece, her grimoire, Akasha, fluttering around her like an over-eager helper or bird. As Aurora rolled out the scroll and set up her instruments, she realized even someone of her mastery over energy would struggle to muster sufficient power without draining herself. Lumetit, after all, was the planet's rarest, strongest, and most stable material. There had to be a workaround to reshape it, a complex alchemical process, which even her magic eyes would find challenging. Her method was unorthodox, simple alchemy merged with extreme precision. Using a normal iron breastplate as a template, she would initiate a fusion process that replaced the iron step by step with lumetit. As the iron's molecular bonds broke, lumetit would fill the void, until the entire plate became pure lumetit. In theory, the sky shimmered in blue and red as dawn broke, no great change for an elf, even if it had been a different time of day where she came from. Birds sang from the forest hundreds of meters down the slope, accompanied by other wildlife and the babble of a stream. In that moment, Aurora felt this truly was a dawn heralding a new age for her. Surveying her ritual preparations, Aurora realized how difficult it would be, especially if interrupted. Her slender elven form and limited magic reserve stood little chance against a higher rank mage. A rank 5 spellcaster could obliterate her instantly, and any magical creature of that caliber would pulverize her. Okay, before some monster finds me, or word of falling lumetit draws them here, I must finish this very quickly. I don't have enough time, and I can't afford mistakes. Aurora thought, energized by the challenge. She placed her hand on the ground and felt magic pulse around her as melon-sized magic crystals began to glow. A small part of her was relieved the ritual didn't rely on her body as an energy source, otherwise, she'd have to shed her clothes to channel her magic, something she couldn't risk with only a tenth of the normal magic reserves of an elf her age. Hence, the crystals were indispensable until her training officially began. Focusing on the great lumetit chunk within the circle, and on her armor components. Aurora's perception accelerated until time itself seemed to freeze. Her mind calculated countless variables in a flash, barely noticing how complex it was. When the process succeeded, a smile spread across her face as part of the lumetit melted and flowed through grooves cut into the stone floor. The strange liquid looked just like solid crystal, sharp-edged, gleaming, yet still fluid. As the molten lumetit coated the helmet, a faint migraine stirred, her mental capacities strained by the sheer magnitude of the material and the dissipating black smoke. The rest of the ritual flew by as Aurora pushed beyond her limits, clinging to willpower even as she exceeded them with the breastplate. When she finished, her head pounded with heat, as if filled with roaring fire.
Thank you for your attention. That's it for today. If you want to see the next part of the story, click on the right side of the screen. There you can find the playlist, and on the left side of the screen you can find the newest video I uploaded. Until next time, take care, goodbye. I hope we see us in the next video again. Bye.